Hello there. I got a package on the way. Designed some boards a while ago when I had a mood, when I had emotions. Sorry, I'm just kind of broken right now. Like, really. I need a tool. Life is just shit. But hey, I got boards, I guess. I only have enough parts to assemble one. That should be enough to have some temporary fun. Which I fucking need. The Thonk Clonker. Maybe I should turn on the light. Hang on. The Thonk... Oh wait, it's overlapping. Oh no, it isn't. There you go. Thonk Clonker. I have no idea why I named it that. Made it in KiCad. Simple little thing. Made by me. Got 10 of them, although I only have enough parts to assemble one. But that should be enough to have some fun. And I also got a bunch of Wemos D1 R2s, which are basically, it's an ESP8266 on an Arduino type board. In this one, the headers are cut into 3 different strips. One of 5, one of 7. Okay, that's an offcut, I guess. Rattles pretty good. It's a good maracas. Rip electronics. So yeah, I have one here. Already got a sample program on it, which connects to my Wi-Fi and then starts to blink. Yay! Hooray! And I'm gonna try to make this talk to this and have this talk to my computer or my server or something. Display some numbers, I guess. Keep being anxious and the fuck. I think I just need a moment to collect myself. I'm sorry. Let's keep this on topic. I have this, and I have a bunch of 7 segments there, and I have some more behind the camera there, so we'll snag those off that board. Oh yeah, I need some resistors. Oof. Do I have resistors here? Probably not. I mean, there's probably going to be resistors, but it's not going to be 8 of different of the same type. But hey, there's a step down buck converter. I can throw this in a lead acid battery or something. Put that there. But yeah, resistors. Where did I put those? May have to unlike. Maybe. Yep, I'm gonna have to unlike. Big oops. Thought I had a command set for that, but apparently not. Let's see. What we can find in here. 330K. $200 ohms. I'll take that. Wait, these are. I have to. Let's do a calculate. Let me first of all, let me secure some things real quick. This is how I'm currently securing my credentials. Yes. It is in a separate file. And I'll just put that up right on top of there. Save. Does it still compile? Compiling sketch. Done compiling. Wow. That means I'm safe. Let's switch to this. Oh look, this is no longer aligned because I moved. Look at that. Yoink. This is the little test program I have. Okay, yes, I was just making sure I wasn't like testing or something. But yes, I'm importing credentials from a different file and I will not open it. But it's well out of the viewable space when you open the file anyway, so yeah. Can I like close it? Ooh, ooh. There you go, credentials at bottom right. No, I can't really close it, so that's good then. Yes, I will leave it like that. How to secure your Wi-Fi? But yes, it just opens the serial. Well, first it pins. For some reason I imported SPI. I don't think we need SPI. We can use shift out. I think it's gonna be fast enough anyway. And that time is gonna be included in the frame time anyway, since I do have two separate data lines, one for the actual serial. No, I have one serial, and then I have the serial clock, and then I have the latch clock, I guess. The latch clock, or it's called R clock, I guess, register clock. But it's basically the output register clock, and which means there's a separate. Basically, the output doesn't change while we're shifting in bits. Also, we're gonna use shifter registers because easiness. Yeah. And let's do a calculate. Let's move this. Red lead voltage. What? Two volts. 1.8 volts. 1.8 volts. 1.85 and 2.5. We'll take the lowest, 1.85. Let's do some checks. We have 5 volts, and we negate the 2. 1 point, what did we say? 8.85. I guess I can manipulate that. Yep, of course. Can't use the numpad. So we're gonna have to drop 3.5 volts. No, 3.15 volts. And what the fuck is Ohm's law again? I can't remember. There it is. What do we want? We want the current given voltage and resistance. So we have voltage divided by resistance. We have 200 ohms, which gives us 0.015 amps. Uh, 15 milliamps. Yeah, acceptable. Completely acceptable. I think when I initially calculated it, I did it for 220 ohms. That was also fine. That was 12 milliamps. Yes. We're gonna populate this board. And first of all, let me just inspect it, see if it's fine. There's one area that was particularly So their Gerber viewer is kind of fucked then. But I already kind of knew that. But yes, let's fit the resistors first. Actually, let's just snip them off. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which leaves 2. Yoink, 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 yoink. This doesn't need to be accurate, but I'm pedantic. There we go. I have to store that little piece of component like somewhere, so I don't step on it later. That's the worst thing about electronics. Finding a bunch of random copper or component leads just on the floor, and then suddenly you're like, ah! It's worse than a needle, because it's blunt, but it still penetrates, and it's really, really painful. Your feet will cry. Yes, the board. Maybe I should form these, and maybe I should switch the camera. Hey! So I'm gonna form these by hand because, well, doesn't look like I have the budget for much more. Oof, oof, oof. Ugh. No thank you. That's awful. I need to bend them really tight. Okay. I mean, I thought I chose a pretty big footprint, but apparently I did not. Oh, that's... Fuck. Wait. I remember now. The footprint is for a vertical, which means you only bend one leg. I may have oofed really badly. This will look like crap. Also, that doesn't make them the smallest component anymore. That means the shift registers are the smallest component. I can't really test them. Let's just grab 2 new ones in case. New. These 2 have been intertwined like this. That may be good or bad, because all the pins are shorted. Hopefully that has protected these. Although these should be pretty don't know the technology they use, but I've used them before and they are quite resilient. So let's see if they go in smoothly. Not really. I'm gonna have to do the old trick of putting it on the table and bending a bit. A bit more, it seems. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I'm being careful. Yeah, now they're completely straight. Ha ha ha. That feels good. Let's tack that in. Get solder. The iron is already heated up. I bought this as leaded solder. It's clearly not. Just from the way it flows. With the existing stuff I have. And the existing stuff I have is really, really, really old. It's like 20 years old. It's from my dad, so I know it's leaded. So this is lead-free, I assume. Even though it says 6337 on it, which is close to 6040. But hey, I guess I could bend this in place as well, so that its are straight. Maybe a bit too much on that one. That pin back out. There we go. Nice. This looks awesome already. Can I like prop this up? Oh, let's prop this up on another shift register. That's too tall. USB stick? No. Maybe. These are the displays we're gonna use, but right now I'm gonna use a shift register I have lying around, and that pin is clearly not gonna go in. Plonk it down somewhere so we get the same height roughly. Put the Thonk Clonker on top. I think it's still a bit off. Could I? Yeah, I could. Let's just do it. This is YOLO. So I'm gonna hold the board down. Actually, let's just do this on Let's do this. And let's on the pin and let's add solder. Come on. Fuck yeah. This stuff is crap. Come on, go on the pin. Oh wait, no. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. The freaking I think when I ordered the board, I ordered it to be flowed with leaded. Let's check. Come on, Great Firewall. It's so picky to let you through sometimes. But then once you're through, it just ding, 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 ding. You're fine until you do something weird and wait in a certain order or something. I don't know. Let's check. Surface finish is HASL with lead. So F. How much of my dad's solder do I have? Where do I have it? There. Oh, that's not much. It's probably enough. Maybe? Ooh, maybe? I don't know. It's just one layer. How long can that be? Okay, it's like a meter, at least. And I think we'll only use... But I have to clean the tip. Fuck. F. Let's go cheap. Let's damage the tip a bit to conserve my solder. Dire situations, dire times. Let's just do this. Yeah, this. Don't do that. And then let's reflow with leaded solder. Oh god. This flows much better. Okay, there's a bit of a mix in there, but it's good enough. So with that in mind, oh come on. That's awful. Ooh. Let's do the opposite side. Pin 1. Much better.
Let's do pin 1 over here as well. Okay, that was awful. Oh, come on, what the fuck is going on here? The display might not work now, because there's... Oh, no, we're fine. I think we're fine. For now. So, that was a fucking pain. You need to quickly re-add solder to protect the tip. I may have to retighten the screw. This ain't gonna work. Yep, it's too thick. Anyway, now I can more better. Okay, we've used quite a bit of solder already. This is not nice. And there's solder on my and it's stuck. Awesome. Anyway, let's continue. What the Why is this taking so much effort? Awful, but we'll accept it. Ah. That's one way to do it. I'm impressed. I was just using the wrong side of the tip, I guess. That's not too bad. This may not be enough solder. I need to be a bit conservative with it. Ah, stop shaking. Stop shaking. Stop. Anyway, there we go. Did I turn back the audio? Yes, I did. What have you been seeing all of this? Roughly. Roughly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Shift registers are in. Which means we now get to put in the segment displays. Oh, the board is warm. Nice. Yoink. Actually, let's take that one out. Okay, this is, I'm gonna have to like bend these in place a bit. Okay. They're a bit loose, but they're in. That's 4 of them. Here's 4 more. Yeah.
make sure they're all in the right way up, with the dots to the bottom right. Come on, get in there. Get the fuck. What's wrong? Nice. Starting to look like something. I have another order from JLCPCB on the way. 2 actually. One is a ECG circuit on a Arduino Shield, and the other is some LED matrix screens, both pre-assembled. I had to pay. I bought 640 surface mount LEDs and have them put it on my boards, which is kind of stupid, but bail them out. If it's available, let someone else do it. That's just 2 laborers. I'm not a machine, so yeah. Yeah, this will be the first, like, oof resistor. Yeah, let's get these displays in, which are even more pins. I get so many pins. So many pins. Luckily the pads are big, but that means they're gonna take a bit of solder as well. God damn it. Should have thought of this beforehand. There's always something, isn't there? Luckily these are just pads and not plated through hole. I think. A 4th complete. Yeah, there's gonna be enough solder for this. Maybe I should have pressed them down before soldering them all. Oh wait. I did this. But there's weight there, the board. I have to go back and look at what happened there because I kind of spaced out on if and how if it got aligned and if I did it consciously. Because I need to find that out. That was like weird. It's getting some weight. Ooh. It's getting warm. Ooh. Good that I put in that ground planes. Fill the entire board with ground planes, even though some of them are not connected. I don't know if that's optimal or not. Resistors, which are going to be the TOS components in this build. Because they're standing up. Let's start with the one I fucked up badly. Here's how it looks. Yeah, focus is not this camera's thing, apparently. Who cares? Although maybe I should have put these in. I'm gonna have to like put the board on its side manually, like space them out a bit. I did manually for everyone. How to reach? I do not know. Yeah, that doesn't reach.
I did it, who the fuck knows. Well, it's in there. Let's just solder it and see what happens. Let's touch up that pin. And let's solder the other side of that resistor. Stop shaking. Left hand this time. Should I stagger them? Like, yes, let's do that. Let's be pedantic. I'm not gonna be pedantic about color codes because it looks the same almost. I mean, to be fair, it's brown, black, 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 red. But the entire resistor is blue, so it kind of just looks dark anyway. There we go. Let's stagger them. How dare you? Yeah, I'm gonna do these individually because otherwise they're just gonna jiggle about. Yeah, just like that. Just like that, and I do not want that. It's going to be a lot of board spinning, but keyboard spin montage. Let's start snipping pins before they get in the way. And let's stick them in a box or something. Let's take that other thing that I found earlier. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? It's gone. Oof. Oof. Oh well. Okay, maybe those doesn't need trimming. Maybe these do. One, two, three, four. Where's the fifth? It's in there. Okay. This thing is magnetic. Damn it. And now they flew everywhere because I dropped the thing. There's one. So there's two in there, I guess. 1, 2, yes. My feet are gonna be crying later. 3. 2 left. Uh-oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Ooh. Ooh. I think there's metal shards all over my hands or something. They're glittery. Really tiny. Oh, oh. I picked it up with the thing. Yeah, that's way tiny. Hmm. I need to demagnetize these tools. I'd say this is going good. Right as I stick the resistor in the long hole. It's actually like hanging there. Maybe I could put in more as time goes. Ugh. Ooh. Well, I guess that means there's not going to be a board spinning montage. Sad. Oh, for fuck's sake. Or maybe there is, because I'm going to have to spin this board around for every resistor I'm going to put in. So I'm putting the components in and then I'm bending them so that they stay in there. And that was a cutting thing. Push it out to the right height, and the leads out. That's what I say. It's just 16 more connections to make. Let's turn it around. It's a fucking instrument. Let's cut these somehow. That was shit. The fuck? Oh. This is not the tool to use for this. Come on. That's all the cleanup of that I'm gonna do. So there we go. Here's the board. Now I just need to get a connector of some type on there. I guess I could take the split one, the maracas packets. Yeah, that's one of 5. And that's one of 7. I'll take the 7 one. And I'll cut it for... Where'd it go? Wow. Well, let's get this one. Oh, it was the right size I chose. Okay, nice. Good. Let's get this header on. Relatively straight. Yeah, maybe I should. Connect something to it. Maybe if I do this to press it up, that's gonna melt my thing. Ooh. Maybe if I just do it, yeah, that's tall enough. Ow. Well, these connectors don't skimp on solder. They are going to be somewhat load-bearing after all. So there we go. We have our ground, serial, clock, and our clock and all that. Guess I could just have the one connector for now, since I already have a ground. Unless I... Oh! Found it. Like this. Ooh. Good enough. So, moment of truth time. Hopefully, I don't need to plug this in again. Ooh, exciting! First, let's just hook up power and see how that goes. Let's let be that way works better. Yeah. Okay. Maybe not. Is there yes, there's a 5-volt. Nice. So I'm gonna use the WeMOS to supply me 5 volts. $15 milliamp times 8. $120 milliamps. Let's see. Ground, 5 volts. What? It actually lit up with FF. Oh my god, what? Okay, I think, okay. Look at that. It's working. Let's see if we can get everything. Oh. Oh well. That's weird. Anyway, you can see it shifting single bits along at 50 Hertz here in Europe. Why is it so regular? Anyway, let's hook up some signals and let's start bit bashing data to this thing, I guess. I need one more. I need one more. Damn it.
Ow, my neck. What the Ow. Ooh. Let's hook up that to white, I guess. Anyway, the fact that I'm getting some random shapes indicate that both shift registers are working properly. As you see, it's scrolled a single bit through the screen at a regular interval for some reason. Like, it's just a shift register and my body was acting as an antenna, and that somehow created that. Either through some kind of phase shift or something, I assume. Do I really not have any more in reach? Let's walk and see if some gets in my reach. Damn it, language. Here? I don't think so. No. Here? No. Damn it. Here? No. Ooh. Microphone is stuck. Where? We were where? I think I have to explore my room, which means I have to unmic again.
One back. And I now have more cables. Now let's turn them sideways so that it puts a bit more force on the connector. Actually, let's stagger them. You'll be this way. And you... Wait. I don't need ground because I have ground. Oh well, let's stop playing around and start writing some code, I guess. So I assume, I don't remember, but I assume that when I made this, I put it as serial clock, and then R clock. Ground first, of course. So ground serial clock, R clock, I think. I'm not sure. Let's just hook these up in a line and see what the hell happens. Yoink. Oh. Okay, let's start writing some code for this thing. Let's see if we can like pop it up somewhere so we can get some whatever I do, it's probably gonna fall. A bunch of C's. Even though there's no code on it to do that. It's probably the signal lines being a bit wonk. Yeah. Signal lines are being a bit wonk. Oh yeah, because they're defined as open or input. There was a piece of 3D printed plastic in my keyboard. And some other crumbs. And crap. Ah, there it was. I assume that was flew into my keyboard. So, let's... actually, here in the code I already set up, I selected D3 for through D5? Yes. Which actually puts it at the end of that port, which is... Oh yeah, it's still there. So, here's what we got. We don't need SPI. Let's just skip Wi-Fi for a moment. It's probably still gonna compound this Wi-Fi stack. Yep. So, let's start experimenting. Let's set up an image, I guess. Byte array or byte pointer. I don't think it's gonna like this. Yeah. Oh yes. Yes, now I remember. It's this. I thought it looked a bit wrong. What? I haven't done this for a while. How the fuck does Arduino array? Is it gonna like this? I don't think it's gonna like this. It's probably gonna need a type initializer. It liked it, okay. Excuse me, what the fuck? The computer made a sound. Like a coil line or something. No, it's a fan. So this is the current program, just blinks twice. So with the built-in LED, it's opposite for the VMOS T1. Low is on and high is off. Yeah, I guess just do this slowly with the regular digital write pins, because there's no need for us to be fast in the clock out, because it doesn't matter. It's yeah, the R clock solves a lot of things for me. I guess just put I guess I'll just start with writing out. Or shift out, was it? Oh, what was it called? And the parameters were data pin, clock pin, the bit order, and the value. So the data pin, I think it's D3. Clock pin is D4. And I think the R clock is D5, we shall see. Bit order is should we do the least significant bit first or most significant bit first? So for each loop, we're gonna display one of these segments, and then we're gonna switch over. Then we're just gonna go round and round. So we're gonna need a counter, preferably a byte as well. Why not? Make it easy and simple, fast. will do display counter plus plus, or actually it should be equal to display counter plus 1, although we need to wrap around. Thankfully it's just 8, which is a power of 2, so we can just end it with 7. There we go. Yes, and then we select the actual byte to shift out, which is going to be that one. Is this going to compile? Yeah. So let's do okay, so and that's wrong. The actual screen contents comes in the later byte. So here's duplicate code, I know. But we're gonna have one shifted, yes, shifted depending on the display counter. And that should hopefully do nothing right now, because A, we're not pulling up, we're not pulling the arc lock. The fuck? Hello? Oh, don't do this to me now. Well, that's a bit of a move. Let's try even worse cable. See if that helps. God damn it. I tested it like this before. Is it the... No, it's not the port. I have multiple questions. But why? It worked before. It worked 5 minutes ago. This is probably not gonna work. Yeah. I may have to jank the camera cable and test with that. Why doesn't it show up? Well, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to jank the camera cable and test with that for a moment. Hold on. Yeah, fuck you too. Let me try hook up the camera again with a faulty cable. Let's see how successful that is. Okay, yeah, that doesn't work. That cable is effed.
Eft. What about this one? Huh? Might be back in business. Yes. Oh. The computer's making a weird noise. I can make it like that. So let's put there, I guess. You cannot see that. No, you can. It's gonna fall. I know it. But if we upload this code, it's not gonna do anything, hopefully. Because we need to clock the our clock. This should hopefully display something on the screen. And it does not. Whee! Let's look at CanCan. Oh, I have the project open. How nice. Let's open the layout editor. Okay. That's a bit weird, but okay. So currently we have it hooked up as D3, D4, D5. Actually, did I put them in line or did I like swap them? Gray, orange, 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 orange. Yes.
Oh, there's a staple back here in the packet. Oof. That might short something. So we have 3, 4, 5, which means we're gonna have to change some definitions around. And actually, let's set up, define serial as 5, D5, define serial clock So, let's do this again. Data pin, clock pin, there we go. This should display crap on the screen. One segment per display. And it does nothing. Whee! I think I'll fuck this up. Three, 4, 5. Yeah, I fucked it up. There we go. So it's inverted, but we can fix that by, instead of taking that, you invert it, I guess. Can you like just invert a number like that? Like, what is, how do bitwise invert? Bitwise not. Oh yeah, the squiggly. The squiggle. So there we go. So now we should have no wait. Yes, this was the problem, but I applied it on the wrong line. It should be... Basically, the data is inverted, so... That's how it's supposed to be. So now all segments are on because how I laid it out. And now they're all going to be off except one per. Yeah, there you go. That's still what I wanted in the first place. So I have no idea what the update rate on this is, but it's probably ridiculously high. So let's add a delay so that the Wi-Fi can actually do its thing. So our maximum update frequency is 100 Hertz. It's gonna be lower than that because shift out and digital writes. So maybe 50 Hertz? Or like 80 Hertz or 70 Hertz maybe? I don't know, it's pretty shimmer free. Yeah, that's like 70, 80 Hertz something. Yeah, I like that. How does that look? That looks like crap. Here, that's how it looks. Let's reset. When I hit reset, you can see what it's... It's not supposed to be 2 there every time. But I guess that's because the reset double triggering some things. But yeah. Woo! It looks a lot better in real life. That's at least one thing I can say. But yeah, with this you can also see the segment order. There's segment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and lastly the dot is the 8th. So there you go. I'll put this back on here. So technically we can just start filling this up. I guess. We can have like a if check something. Like once every frame do something. Yeah, once every frame. And do something, I guess. Else do the delay. What should we do? What shall we do? How does random in Arduino?
Oh no, wait. There. Once every frame, or once every time it scans through, randomize one of the segments. Given that this first segment right here is much dimmer than every other segment, I'm gonna assume the frame rate is very, very, very high. Oh no, it's because it doesn't delay. I see. There we go. Every frame it randomizes a segment. Looks pretty nice. It's upside down right now, but so let's the computer keeps making fan noises. Yeah, it seems like I got it hooked up nice and good on the first try. I like. Let's have it scroll some numbers, I guess. So let's give it a font, more like just a decoding. It's called digits. So what is 0 gonna be? 0 is gonna be let's see here. 7 segments. Let's see here. This is standardized, so for 0, for 0, we're gonna have 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32. For 1 we're gonna have 2 plus 4. For 3 we're gonna have 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 8, 16, 32, 64. Okay, and then
So that's 2 plus 4 plus 32 plus 64. And then it's 1 plus 4 plus wait, what? Zero, 1, 2. I think that's correct. Okay. 0, 1, 2, 3. What? This is not correct. And then it's 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 64. I think 0, 1, 2, 3. 4 is 2 plus 4 plus 4, 8, 16, 32 plus 64. 5 is 1 plus 2, 4 plus 8 plus 6, 32 plus 64. 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. Fuck. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. 6 is 1 plus not 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32 plus 64. 7 is 1 plus 2 plus 4, conveniently. And then 8 is just 256. No. 127. Yes. No, it's... It's 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32 plus 64. Okay. And then we have 9, which is 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus not 16 plus 32 plus 64. And it's gonna complain about training, comma, is it, is it, is it? Sorry. Or maybe it's because of that. Joink, joink. So now instead of displaying the screen, I'm going to display digits. And if this doesn't line up, I'll flip the MSB and MSB. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, what about that? How about that? That's cool. So now each segment is displaying its own index. Let's see if we can make it scroll a bit slowly, yes. Why am I using bytes? I don't know. So, what is the 8266? Is it 816 or 32-bit? I don't know. I mean, the ESP32 is 32-bit, but the ESP8266, that might be... I mean, 82, so maybe it's 8-bit? 82... The 2 is double 8, so it has extension and can count up to 16 like Arduino, 16 bits. But it is actually 8-bit processor. Let's search. ESP8266 architecture. It's a 32-bit microcontroller. Well, there you go. Wow. Wow. Yeah, these are... I have one of these, actually. I had it... There. Maybe I could have just plugged that in. Nah. Let's go back to displaying screen. However, this time we're gonna walk through the frame, I guess, and I don't know. Can you like shift an array? Shifting data in array. I want a mem copy, please. Let's do it naively. And basically say every so often actually let's just try and then copy. Let's just insert a random digit. And now it will scroll some direction. Every 256 frames. Maybe. What? What? Hmm. Something is clearly wrong here. Yeah, it randomizes everything. For some reason. I guess we'll go for a circular buffer then. God damn it. I mean, I guess I could have it a reference, not have it in an array, but have it be a bring our own reference list, maybe. Oh, is there a list? Or bringing our list. Fine, we'll do it the hard way. Actually. It's been a while. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this manually. No way. That technically does the same. Huh. That should do it properly. Why? Oh. It triggers 256 times, I think. No. What the fuck? This should empty the screen, or just fill it with the same. Only one segment should go crazy now. Okay. I think it does it 8 times. Now it should behave properly. Just shift them along. 6, 2, 3, 5, 3, 2, 8, 7, 3, 6. Yeah, it seems to be working. Shifting them along. Let's make it do it every... Let's make it do it every 32 frames, I guess. Okay, so it's at least clicking over 3 times a second there. Which means, just roughly, 32 times 3. We have 96 frames a second here. So that's nice. Is our element brighter because we do computation somewhere? No? Should be this first element, should be brighter or dimmer depending on the computation. If we do all the computation at the beginning, which is also the end of the frame. There we go. Let's see if we can get some numbers to rush by. Every 16 frames. Let's Well, I think that's cool. Just random numbers in there. 7, 4, 6, 7s, 8s, 3s, 4s, 1s. Bit of everything. Yeah. I did not expect this to work first try. I'm a bit happier right now. This feels nice. And I have 9 more boards, and I have a bunch of... oh shit, I don't have resistors. I don't have any resistors! Damn it! Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it! Maybe I can ask my dad. But yeah, I have a lot of 50 of these coming in. That should be enough for at least 5 more, I think. The SCK LED on the ESP keeps changing intensities. Let's just go faster. We must be 1 or 2. Let's see if I can show. Yeah, there. That LED right there. This. That one. SCK. What the hell is that? Let's go to Google, see if that can help for once. Yeah, what is SCK? Oh, is it part of... is it part of SPY? Or is this SPY? I have no fucking clue about these names. SPY SCK pin. So it's SPY then, I guess. Yeah, it's like it's attempting to talk to something on the SPY bus? Why would it? There's nothing here. Nope. Shift modulo equals 10. So we're just gonna add 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 repeatedly. No, that's way too fast. There's definitely a pattern in there, so let's slow it down. Something like 64. Let's see what it says. Zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoop whoop. If we want to, we can expand digits to include A, B, C, D, E, and F as well. Then we can display hexadecimal. But I'll do that another time. I think I'll stop here. This is fairly concise and good, I guess. So yeah. Question is, can I bring the camera close without the video feed crashing? Nope, it crashed. Whoop-de-fucking-do. There we go. So yeah, that's the Thonk Clonker. It's fairly bright. But yeah. Very nice. It's just memes all over this thing. Excuse me. It was my first board, okay? I wanted to put something good for the silk screen, and turns out I may have overdone it, just like the camera just got overdone. And yeah. Thonk. And the camera is now, yeah, camera's dead. Well, oh, there we go. Or not. Oh, they crashed again. Oh well. I'm not gonna mess with it anymore. I mean, I'll go do something else. Okay. But yes. Wait. I want to see how, if I can make it like fast. Every 4 frames. Let's see how fast that is. I want to see it go fast. Better fast. Yes, that's fast. Too fast. Off that, please. Yeah. We still have the dots if you want to display decimal or fractions or whatever. But yes, I have, I mean I could do more, but to be honest, oh also, I think I fucked up a lot on the camera, maybe. But this is the code if I haven't shown it. We have the pins defined, then we have the digits, then we have the screen buffer, I guess. And then we set everything to output, set everything to low, just to be sure, begin to 0, even though we don't need to. We find some bytes, and in our loop we simply write low to our, should be high. We write high to our digital, to our LED, so it stays off, I guess. And then we shift out the current row we're displaying, and then we display the digit for that row. And then we increase the counter, and then we pulse the output register clock on the shift registers, and then we increase the frame counter if the display counter is 0. Which it will be every 8 times in the loop. And if our frame counter is 8 and our display counter is 0, then we shift everything over. We add a new digit in there, and then we shift what digit we're going to add next time, and we reset the frame counter. And then at the end we do a little delay. And that's it for the loop. And I guess it is. Bunch of wandering digits just flying at you. Anyway, I shall stop rambling. Goodbye.